It was like after I declined her invitation, I was just treated like look, I was not treated right. And let's just be real right now, like racism ain't gone. It ain't dead, okay? Like this is my third manager in 14 months. Like 3. It's like if my own parents don't yell at me, you definitely not. And if you think that you're about to embarrass me in front of other people and you ain't even my parents, you got nothing coming. Okay? What's up, you guys? It's KeAmber Vaughn, aka CoachKe, coming back with another video. If you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you're not new, welcome back. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and also tap the bell so that you are notified of every new video that I post. So as you guys can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be doing my very first story time on my channel, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about my nursing job that I quit. So in the spirit of me rounding out my last 4 weeks of my very first travel nurse assignment, I decided that I wanted to talk to you guys about my very trash ass experience in my very first nursing job as a new grad. So if you are new here, I am going to link up in the eye in the sky a couple of videos from this travel nurse experience. It'll be my very first travel nurse contract, my very first travel nurse paycheck, and then also a day in the life of a psych nurse where I take you to work with me and show you guys a little bit about what I do. Now, another quick note real quick. Y'all might see me drinking out of this from time to time. Yes, I drink my smoothie straight out the blender because I don't like doing dishes. Judge mama. I never really talked about how I got into nursing, and I'm gonna keep it very quick because you know what? I really want this video to be under 25 minutes, but I went through a lot as a new grad at my very first job, and I want to tell y'all all about it. Basically, I graduated from nursing school in December of 2011, and it took me about 4.5 years to get my bachelor's degree because my very first school that I went to was accelerated, and although I got a lot of my prereqs done very fast, my science classes didn't have labs. That's what's needed to get into nursing school, so it put me a semester behind because I had to redo a bunch of those science classes that had labs. But needless to say, I graduated about 6 months after my 21st birthday, and at that time I was just like, you know what, I need a break. I graduated high school at 16 with over a 4.0. I think I had like a 4.13 or something like that, and then I kept a 4.0 all through college until nursing school, because in nursing school, like, the grading system is different. Like, you have to have, I think it was a 95 to keep a 4.0, like a 95% in each class to keep a 4.0, but I still had a 3.8. But anyway, when I graduated, I wanted to take a break because even through nursing school, I went to a D2 college and I played basketball, so that came with a lot of traveling and stuff. I also was a real estate agent because I knew that was the only job or career that I could have at the time where I could set my own hours, but I was very successful with it, so that took up a lot of time. So I was just like, you know what, I need a break from everything. I'm just gonna do real estate for a couple of months until I decide that, you know what, I'm ready to sit down and have a typical job. So in February of 2012, I took my NCLEX, and I remember I did not pick up a book. Child, I didn't want to look at another piece of nothing regarding anything that had to do with school, nursing, nothing after I graduated. And I took the NCLEX in February. I think it was like early February at that. And I remember I passed with the minimum number of questions. And y'all, I remember when I clicked the next button, I think the minimum questions is like 75 and the max is like 2 something. Don't quote me on that. It was a long time ago and my memory is shot. The way my brain works, if something is not like super duper duper important, it gets rid of it, okay? It just does. But I remember when I clicked the next button and that thing shut off, I said, damn, I ain't thought about nursing in like 2 months. Either I'm hella smart or I'm super effing dumb. Because that's like the only way to get the minimum number of questions. Either you real smart and they just know you know your stuff, or you real stupid and they know you need to go to a like prep course or something. So needless to say, very shortly after, I think like 2 days after I got the preliminary results, that I had passed. And so I was really grateful and I was really excited, but again, I was burnt out. So I remember I didn't start looking for nursing jobs until maybe like mid-March. And back then, I don't know how things are nowadays, but back then, the typical thing with hospitals where they took new grads at 2 times of the year. So for all the grads that graduated in December, they typically want to hire you and have you start working around March. But you have to already have been applied, because I think at the time they pretty much stopped taking like applications and stuff around like early February or so. And then in August, September is like the second round of new grads that they hire, and that's for all the new grads who have graduated in May, or also like if you graduate towards like August or so, July, August, if you had to like finish off summer classes or whatever, or you know, if you were like me, graduated in December and didn't want to start working until the next fall. So at that point I was like, dang, like I've missed the new grad hire process, but I don't really want to wait until August. But I had already started applying. I had put in like over 50 applications in St. Louis. We have a bunch of hospitals there, and I was getting no callbacks, no interviews, no nothing. So at the time, the guy who I was like somewhat kind of sort of dating, we were really good friends. He was just like, well, you know, I live in a small town, so maybe you should look at the smaller hospitals here, because maybe because, you know, it's a lot smaller, they don't go by the same standards. So I called one of the hospitals, they had the same standards, but then the second hospital didn't. And the lady was like, listen, we don't do the whole like new grad process the way that everybody else does, but we're having a new grad hire event here in 2 weeks. And I know that you live 600 miles away, but maybe you can come down, because most new grads who come to this event end up getting hired. So I was weighing my options, and I was just like, you know what, why not? Honestly, I didn't have high hopes, but I was like, hey, if I get a job, cool. Like, I've never wanted to grow up like in my adulthood and raise children in St. Louis. So it was just like, all right, I'm starting my adulthood, cool, I can move away. So I went down there, and on my way down there, I kept telling myself the one job I am not going to take is in neuro, because all throughout college, in my nursing school experience, most of my practicums were in neuro, and I hated neuro. It was so many things that I hated about neuro, and I knew I did not want to go into that. I did have a couple of practicums, especially my 160-hour practicum like at the end of nursing school. That was in the ICU. My children's or pediatrics experience was also in the ICU. I think the CICU, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was the CICU, but I just knew I didn't want neuro. So I go down there to the new hire event. I talk to a couple of managers, and I'm really an introvert. Like, I can be pretty animated and extroverted, like around my really, really close friends and some of my family members. But for the most part, I'm like an introvert. I'm a loner. So like events like that are really difficult for me, but like one-on-one interaction, I'm cool with. So anyway, I go down there and I decide to stay for about a week, because I was also visiting the guy who I was somewhat dating or whatever. And I think the day before I left is when I got a call back that they wanted to hire me. But guess who it was? Just my damn look. It was the manager from the neuro floor. So I was just like torn, because I'm like, I don't want to go into neuro, but I also don't want to wait another 6 months to get hired somewhere else. So you know what, I'll just go ahead and take it. And I remember the day after, the day that I was like driving back, I get a call from an ICU in St. Louis who wants to interview me, and I declined it. And my dad was just like, why would you decline it? Why wouldn't you at least try to interview? You're going 600 miles away for this job and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Dad, I've been applying for these places in St. Louis for months now. Like, well, it wasn't really months. Maybe it was like weeks, but I was being dramatic. But either way, it was just like, I've been applying and these people ain't trying to hire me. So whatever, like, I have a job right here. This is where I'm going. So a couple of weeks later, I moved down to Georgia for this job, and everything kind of started off cool, you know, but then it just turned to hell. Hell on earth, okay? So I remember when I first started the job, everything was great. Like, everybody loved me. Oh my gosh, this new grad is like very time efficient. She's getting her work done on time. She's leaving on time, like blah, blah. I was getting praised all the time. Now, the one thing that did make me a little uncomfortable was the fact that I was in the South, and let's just be real right now, like, racism ain't gone. It ain't dead, okay? So I was 600 miles away from home in the South in a unit where I was only one of 3 Black nurses. One of the other Black nurses was like in her late 20s. The other one was probably like in her mid 40s or so. And then I remember we had 2 other staff members who were Black. One of them was a secretary. She was like in her mid to late 40s. And then we had a nurse assistant or a CNA who was probably like in her mid 40s. So 5 of us total, but it was only 3 of us who were Black nurses. And everything was cool until they found out that I was 21. Then it was just like everybody was just against me at that point. Because then it went from, oh, we have this new grad who's doing the thing, blah, 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 to, oh, we have this young 21-year-old Black nurse who's showing us up. Like, she's doing the job better than we are. We're not getting out on time. We're doing this. We're doing that. Yeah, it was just like terrible. So I remember that our orientation process as new grads lasted, I think, like 6 weeks. It was either 6 or 8 weeks, like somewhere in between there. And so for everybody who worked at nighttime, you had to be on days for like 4 weeks, and then you switched to nights for like 2 to 4 weeks until you felt comfortable, and then you were out on your own. Well, for me, because I did my job very well, I only went through 2 weeks of orientation on days. I flipped to nights because my preceptor during the day, my preceptor during the day, she was just like, yo, why do y'all have her in orientation? She knows what the hell she's doing. And one of the things that helped me was the fact that in high school, I took a health occupations class. So my whole second semester of my senior year, every single week, I was on a different floor and I shadowed nurses. So I had that experience, and then I didn't just like go to regular college and like doing regular like prereqs like a lot of the other nurses did. I went through a medical assisting program that was accelerated. So I got a lot of my prereqs and stuff done, which a lot of them I had, not a lot of them, but some of them I had to retake like the AMP courses because we didn't have a lab attached to it. And for nursing school, you had to have labs. So that's why it took me 4.5 years to get my bachelor's instead of 4. But that experience of having to do 160 hours or 180 hours to get my medical assistant diploma, that really helped because I had that patient care experience that a lot of the other new grads and even new grads to this day don't have. A lot of them graduate from high school, they go straight into college, they're taking courses, and the only experience they have with patient care is when they're actually doing their clinicals in nursing school. But I had years of clinical experience already, basically. But that's neither here nor there. So I do the 2 weeks, I go to nights. I think I only did like a week and a half, 2 weeks of being in orientation at that point, and then I was off orientation. I was on my own. At that point, everything was cool, right? And then I remember my boss at the time, she was this 50-year-old woman who did not look like me. And all the basically nurses on the floor and some of the techs or CNAs as well used to go out drinking, having fun, partying, clubbing with her. And I remember her calling me one day like, oh, you know, I know you're new here. I know you don't have family. You know, we like to go out, blah, 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 have fun together. And I'm just inviting you to come out. And I kindly declined. Like, I wasn't mean about it, but I was like, oh, you know, that's okay. Because number one, I'm not a drinker. Even to this day, I'm almost 30 years old. I probably have 2 drinks a year, like, if that. And a lot of times I have to be pressured even into that. But then at the same time, it was like, this lady is just about as old, if not older than my mama. So if I don't go out and I party and drink with my mother, why would I want to go out drinking with you, lady? Like, I don't know you like that. And I don't know these people like this. I'm one of those people where sometimes I develop relationships with my coworkers, like where we're cool, you know, we might share a little personal information, whatever. And I'm really an open book, but it's just like, I still don't know you like that. And I still kind of keep my distance and I just do my job. One thing that I've learned over the years though, is that the more you keep your distance and kind of like shut yourself off, the more like you kind of get screwed over a little bit, because they feel like you just uppity and you stuck up, when really you just might be a loner. Like, I'm a natural loner. I like to be by myself. I'm very introverted. I can be extroverted sometimes, but for the most part, especially when I'm at work, I go to work, I do my job, I interact with the patients. I don't care about interacting with my staff members like that, with my coworkers. I care about my patients and that's it. But anyway, it was like after I declined her invitation, I was just treated like look, I was not treated right. So I remember where everything kind of made its turn was, I had this patient who had a pain pump inserted. It was infected. And so even though it was neuro, we still kind of took some palliative care patients, which are patients who are on their way to hospice, so they're dying. And then we also have patients who were pain clinic patients, patients who had back, neck, or brain surgery. So we had kind of like a multitude. It wasn't just like stroke and TIAs, which TIAs is like a mild stroke that doesn't really have as much of an effect on your body. So I had this patient, and I remember before I left for my couple of days off of work, I had gave her a Lovenox shot that night. That was pretty typical for that floor, because a lot of them don't get up and move. So in order to prevent blood clots and embolisms and stuff, we give them a Lovenox shot in their stomach every single day. So I remember giving the Lovenox shot, because guess what? That's what came up on the EMR. I gave her shot. I left. When I came back to work a couple of days later, I get called into my manager's office, and she was like, "You're going back to orientation." I'm like, "What? For what?" "Well, the patient that you had, you gave them a Lovenox shot and they went to surgery and they bled during surgery, and it's your fault because you gave the shot." I'm like, first of all, how does this make sense? Because nowhere in any of the doctor's notes did they ever even say that they were even considering surgery. Everything just kept saying, "Oh, we're going to treat this with antibiotics and blah, blah, blah." Nothing ever says surgery. And even then, had the doctor's note said, "Hey, we're considering surgery in the morning," I would have, guess what, called and said, "Hey, I see you're considering surgery. Do you still need me to give the Lovenox?" And on top of that, before they go to surgery, the doctors always look at the medications that they take before they do the surgery. Like, I've had times where, oh, a patient isn't supposed to get Ativan before they get ECT treatment for psych patients. ECT is basically when they shock the brain, it tries to reset it. And you're not supposed to give certain medications like I think the night before, because typically you're passing meds at 8 p.m. and they get the ECT done like around 7 or so. And so because those drugs have certain effects, they don't want them to have them before ECT. And I've forgotten, because, you know, they might give it to me in report, I forget to write it down, or I might write it down on this paper, but it's not over here. And I call the doctor like, "Hey, sorry, I know they're supposed to get ECT. I gave this, you know, is it okay? Do you still want them to go to ECT? You want us to reschedule it for the next day?" And it's just left at that. So I was pissed, because she was like hammering down on me, and I was already back on my own for like, or I was on my own out of orientation for maybe like 3-4 weeks, like before this happened. So I go back to orientation and I'm absolutely pissed. And I think I had to do 2 more weeks on days, which are, I hate days. I freaking hate it. And then I had to do more orientation on night before I was back on my own. But here was the thing though. When I looked at the doctor's note from the surgery, because I can look at that, that's my patient, I had something to do with them. The doctor's note from surgery said, "Patient received Lovenox the night before surgery. They bled a little bit during surgery. We cauterized it and everything was good." Cauterize is when you take this like, it's like this pin that like burns. They have paste as well, but it like burns the blood vessel to stop it from bleeding. So I'm like, wait a minute. This heifer said this, she was acting like the lady bled out during surgery. The doctor said they bled a little bit, they cauterized it, and the patient was cool. So at this point, I'm like absolutely pissed. And it's like now I can't even enjoy my job, because I feel like This lady and all these other nurses just have it out for me at this point. That particular manager ended up quitting probably like maybe 2 or 3 months later. I can't even remember how long it was. Maybe like 4 months later. She wasn't there very long. And by the way, like, I was only at this job for 14 months, and that's when I quit for 3 years, almost 4 years, because of this experience. She ends up leaving. We get a new manager. And at this point, I liked this new manager. I liked her personality, but I didn't like her as a manager because she was a pushover. She allowed these young nurses who were like in their mid to late 20s, she just allowed them to walk all over her. It used to piss me off because I'm one of those people, I stand up for myself. Now, sometimes I might be silent while some people are just, you know, jacking off being crazy, but for the most part, I stand up for myself. So it was just like really bothersome to see her like allow them to push her over, but she wasn't ever really a manager, and I don't even remember if she was ever even a floor nurse, to be honest with you. So she didn't last long. She probably lasted, maybe the first lady was there for like 8 of my 14 months. The second lady was there probably 3, 4 of my 14 months. And then this last lady was there for 2 months before I just outright quit. So fast forward to the last manager. This lady was a handful. Okay. She was in her early 30s, I think. And look, I don't never say I hate people, but I hated this lady because she just was not understanding. One of the things that I hate about healthcare is that a lot of people who make the policies have never been nurses. They ain't never been doctors. They ain't never been anything in the medical field. They have some business management degrees, and that's all they know. They don't come onto the floor, you know, and work as nurses to see how things are and see how their policies change things. Like, I remember in my psych nurse job back home, I remember when the pharmacist had changed something to where we could only give it during a shorter window. I think there it used to be like 2 hours before, 2 hours after, and then they changed it to 1 hour before, 1 hour after, and start changing times of when you pass the meds. It was frustrating because it's like, especially when you're dealing with the borderline patients who, if they stand in line more than 2 minutes, they going off, they ready to fight. So it's like, why would you even do that? But anyway, I'm getting off track. So this particular lady, I could not stand her because she had never been a floor nurse outside of ICU. So when you're in the ICU, you typically only take care of 1 or 2 patients. Very rarely do you have more than that, which, by the way, on neuro, baby, as a new grad, I had 7 or 8 patients a night for the most part. Sometimes I get lucky and have 4 or 5, but for the most part, I had 7 or 8. In my patient population, I would typically have like half of my patients would be stroke patients, which were total care most of the time, so they couldn't move half their body. So you having to change diapers, push, pull, turn every 2 hours, do neuro checks every 4 hours. And then I would have 1 palliative care patient, which these patients are dying, so I'm having to give typically morphine, like IV. I used to have to give that every 45 minutes to an hour because of how much pain they were in. And then I would have the back, neck, or brain surgery patients who I'm having to give pain medicine to. Then I would have pain clinic. It was just a lot. Okay, 7 patients of that like population is too much. Okay, this lady had never had more than 1 or 2 patients, which, don't get me wrong, a lot of ICU patients, it's a lot of work, but you only have 1 or 2. So she started hammering down on the fact that people wasn't getting out on time, and y'all not doing this right, and y'all not managing this, and you forgetting this. And so I just simply asked her, like, can you just come and work on the floor for a time or 2? Like, get you a couple of shifts during the daytime, pick up a couple of shifts during the nighttime. You ain't even gotta like take on the patients, but just shadow some of us. And you can see how it is to actually have more than 1 or 2 patients, baby. And she didn't like that. She didn't like it at all. I probably didn't say it in the most nicest way. And so I remember, I forgot exactly what happened, but she had came in one morning. I was ready to go because, you know, when you work 12 hours overnight, you ready to go, okay? It's only a short period of, like this little short window that you have to fall asleep. And if you don't fall asleep by that time, you ain't falling asleep, okay? So I was ready to go. And I remember that she was at the nurse's station and I was getting onto the elevator to leave out of the unit, and she yelled my name and said something from that nurse's station, and I turned around. Because let me tell you something, my own parents don't yell at me. I was a good kid, so I didn't really get yelled at much, but it's like if my own parents don't yell at me, you definitely not. And if you think that you're about to embarrass me in front of other people and you ain't even my parents, you got nothing coming. Okay? So I basically went off on her and clicked the button to go down. I never even left the elevator. You want to yell at me from the nurse's station, I'm going to yell at you from this elevator, then I'm going to go home. After that, I had pretty much decided, you know what? My time is up. It's been 14 months. I'm about to get up out of here because this is just way too freaking much for me. I cannot. I think it was 14 or was it 16 months? I think I started in April. I left in July, so 15 months, somewhere around there. Look, 14 to 16. But anyway, I remember going to her office. I sat down with her and I said, listen, this is not going to work for me. I'm about to go back home, you know, and I'm just putting in my 2-week notice. Or no, I think some things were going on and I was trying to like help her do her job. Like, listen, if you just do it this way, you'll get over way better with these people type of thing. She won't take my advice. And I might have put my 2 weeks in like in writing or something. And she called me into her office to talk about it. And that's when I basically was letting her know, like, look, I'm putting in my 2-week notice. I'm not really happy here. I'm ready to go. So y'all know what this heifer said. You can't give me a 2-week notice. It has to be 30 days. That's the policy. So I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm not accepting this 2-week notice. I said, what? I said, listen, I don't know what you're talking about the fact that it's a 30-day policy, because when I first started working here, it was 2 weeks. And I didn't sign my name on any dotted line agreeing to these 30 days. So you're going to get a 2-week notice from me. And I remember like by this time they had so many managers that were filtering out. Like this is my 3rd manager in 14 months. Like 3. And other floors were having the same issue. So because of that, and because of so many people quitting because of previous managers and all these different changes and policy changes, they had to up the scale from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, basically because of how bad the turnover was. She was basically talking to me like it wasn't an option. Like, had she just come to me and said, listen, I can't hire a new nurse in that time frame. Like, it was the way she said it. Like, I can't hire a new nurse at the end of the, like, just going in. And this lady, again, did not look like me. So I definitely, I don't like nobody looking like me talking like that. But especially if you don't look like, don't do that. Don't. But anyway, so yeah, I was just like, look, I'm doing a 2-week. And I walked out of her office. And I remember her just basically saying how she couldn't hire a nurse in that time frame and blah, 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 this and that. But again, it wasn't what she, well, some of it was what she said, because she was making it seem like I didn't have control over my own stuff, you know. But most of it was how she said it. And she just come and said, listen, I can't possibly hire a new nurse in 2 weeks. You know, the turnover ratio is this. We're always short-staffed. Can you please just say an extra 2 weeks, help me out? You know, I'm still not going to be able to hire somebody and train them in that time frame, but at least by then I can at least have them hired and on their way. Has she come to me like that? I'd have been like, you know what? I'm sorry. I'll give you 4. But when she said, you can't. All right. So I remember walking out. I had 3 days, I think, in between that conversation and my next day of work. And so I just decided, you know what? Since she's telling me what I can't do, I'm going to show her what I can do. So literally like 5 minutes, I think I'm going to have to, if I can find the email of me sending her the email quitting, I will post this up here. But it was either like 5 minutes before my shift or like a couple hours before my shift or something. I was just like, you know what? Since she wants to be evil and vindictive, I'm going to show her evil and vindictive. If you can't hire a nurse and train them in 2 weeks, you definitely ain't going to be able to in a couple hours. Okay? So I literally sent her an email like, hey, this is my last day. And I literally quit right then on the spot. And I remember I packed everything up not too long after. And the guy who I was like somewhat dating in the beginning, we had been engaged by that time. And things that went on, I decided to leave him. If y'all want a story time on that, I'll give y'all as much as I can without just like going too far into detail. But yeah, I literally packed everything up, called a mover, didn't even tell him I was leaving. And the mover showed up a couple days later. He called like, why is it movers at my door? I'm like, oh, let them in. I gave him pictures of everything. I'm out, basically. So I left him, I left that job, and I moved back to St. Louis. And yeah, the rest was history. Now, luckily for me at the time, I had just gotten into network marketing like around February of 2012. So like right around the time that I passed my, right around the time that I passed my NCLEX, I had got into network marketing. So by this time I had already replaced my nursing income. I was making about $2,500 a month, I think, which I was taking home about $2,400 a month after taxes. And the next month I had doubled that income, and about 6 months later I had tripled my nursing income, and the rest was history from there. I had took, like I said, about almost 4 years off because that experience was so damaging. It was like everything I knew about nursing, from shadowing nurses from high school at 16 years old, it was like, man, this experience is nothing like what I experienced in the past, like not even during clinical, and I just knew I wasn't going to be happy. So I deuced up out of there. Hey, you got a couple hours to find your new nurse. So yeah, y'all, that's my trash ass experience as a new grad and what caused me to walk away from nursing for almost 4 years. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Even though my experience was bad, it made for a good story time, right? But I really hope that other people don't have to go through what I went through, because I almost did not get back into nursing, but I'm very happy and glad that I did get back to what I was passionate about. I think that's what hurt me the most, is that I've always been passionate about nursing, and they like ruined my beginning of the experience. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.